Tech is pushing the S&P and NASDAQ to some record highs, but also facing some pressure from Washington, with Treasury, DOJ, the FTC all taking steps to look into AI's biggest players. Joining us to discuss this morning, Elevation Partners co-founder Roger McNamee, of course, an early investor in Google and Facebook. Roger, good morning. I did take note of something you wrote a couple of days ago, and that is thanks to the manic pursuit of AI market dominance, the platforms themselves have become unsafe in new ways. Beware, you said.
Yeah. Well, Carl, the issue here is there's nothing wrong with AI as a concept or a business. And there's clearly nothing wrong with NVIDIA, which I think is one of the most extraordinary companies I've ever seen. The issue here is that generative AI was designed to pass a Turing test, which means it was designed to fool humans into thinking it was human. And that's really great for demos and lots of things that don't have high value in a corporate sense. But when you get into productivity world, you really want things to be based on fact, which is not something that generative AI is capable of doing. It can't distinguish fact from fiction. And so the result of this, when you look at it, is we've seen this massive rush to market. And the most recent example is Microsoft with Recall, which is a product that takes a snapshot of literally everything that you do on your PC in Windows, and especially everything that's related to Copilot and all the other things in the Microsoft suite. Well, the problem with it is that they forgot to put in any security. So the stuff is kept in plain text on your PC, which makes it incredibly easy to hack. And hackers have already figured out how to do it. And you look at this and you say to yourself, well, what could possibly go wrong? Obviously, stalkers, hackers, ransomware, all of those things are there. And the problem is that there's no protection for the consumer on this. And I guess the whole issue that I see in the AI space is that there are a lot of things going on now that should still be going on in a lab, and yet corporations are deploying it incredibly widely, spending literally billions of dollars. I mean, Microsoft is spending $10 billion a month on cloud service centers. And the key point is they're putting most of them in deserts where there's no water, despite the fact that every time you put in a prompt, it uses half a liter of water. And so when you get the stuff to scale, it's just going to have environmental damage that we may not be able to recover from.
That's a separate, I guess, ball of wax, Roger. But to the product element and the unreliability aspect, if the consumer's not smart enough, aren't corporates at least smart enough to turn their backs on products that give you that kind of misinformation?
So far, there's no evidence of that. I believe that Microsoft and OpenAI have executed the greatest marketing campaign I've ever seen. And I've been in the business 40 plus years. And it's really extraordinary what they've done. And I would argue that the validation of OpenAI and ChatGPT by Microsoft caused corporations to relax their processes. And in a world where 5% interest rates make it much more expensive for corporations to buy back their stock, executives were looking for a new shiny toy to show investors. And they all jumped onto AI at the same time. And the result of this is with Microsoft saying, hey, this is totally safe, we're putting it into all of our products. And Google saying, hey, this is totally safe, we're putting it into search. Everybody goes, well, hey, those guys are really smart. They're richer than we are. They have a bigger market cap. They must know what they're doing. And I think the question investors should be asking is not whether people will buy this stuff, because I think Microsoft will succeed in selling a lot of it, but what's going to happen after it's deployed. And I think last week's example with Google in search shows you what the downside is, which is that people were getting search results telling you to cook chicken at temperatures that are unsafe and that you want to eat 3 rocks a day and stuff like that. And you know, that stuff is funny, it's cute, but it's also incredibly dangerous. And if you put this into an important application setting, there's all kinds of problems that come up from it that are just about the facts. And then, of course, there are the security issues and all the other stuff that comes with it.
So one of the greatest marketing schemes of all time. So, Roger, how long does this ruse go on for? I mean, do you believe in the people who think that there's going to be a massive PC upgrade cycle because everybody's got to get the Microsoft PC with the button on it for AI? Or, you know, does the rubber meet the road sometime before that upgrade cycle ever materializes?
There's no evidence that there's going to be any pause in this at all. And I look at this, and if I were a Fortune 500 CEO, I'd be staring my CIO in the face and just saying, look, pal, pause for a moment. Show me the ROI case for this. Show me how this is actually going to work in practice. Let's go slower. You know, we can take credit for doing it, but let's go slower. And I look at all of this stuff, and again, I believe there will be versions of AI that are very powerful and very useful. I just don't think the generative AI, that generation of technology, is going to be the one that gets it done. And maybe I'm going to be wrong, but the one thing I can tell you is if you're an owner of Microsoft or you're an owner of NVIDIA, the stocks are priced with a very simple view, which is this is going to be so big that these stocks are going to double from here. And that is entirely possible. But everyone's on the same side of the trade. And if I've learned one thing on Wall Street, it's when everyone's on the same side of the trade, it's really useful to spend a few minutes thinking about what would happen if they were wrong.
Yeah, except the idea that demand is suddenly going to dry up seems just fanciful.
Oh, and to be clear, David, I'm not expecting demand to dry up. I'm actually expecting this stuff to get sold and then in the field to have very, very bad outcomes.
Right.
So, you know, but David, you remember this because you and I have been around a long time. In 1993, there was a company called SAP that had R3, which was a brand new concept in accounting software called Enterprise Resource Planning. They partnered with a company called Andersen Consulting, which is now Accenture. And it was exactly like this. Accenture, Andersen Consulting validated what SAP was doing, and they persuaded essentially the whole Fortune 500 to buy the software at the same time. The problem was that the software required literally between $10 and $100 worth of modification for every dollar you spent on the software. And that proved to be a disaster for almost everybody. And at the time, one of the points that I made to people was you wanted to go long SAP and short their customers. And I'm suggesting we may be in a repeat of that. Okay, and you know, like I said, I think Microsoft can sell ice to Eskimos, and you know, they're very good at this. But that doesn't mean that they're right or that the product's going to be any good.
Roger, next time we'll talk about the actual regulators themselves and whether they can do anything. We'll save it for next time.
That's a whole separate question.
Exactly.
That'll be fun. Good.
Roger McNamee, thanks.